All right, welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fith. We're here for episode number 111. A little bit of technical difficulties with our intro song. So, Dennis, you know the words. Why don't you rap them for everybody?
It's true EMU. And when it comes to Chapman, he's dissing everybody. So sit back. It's the Fifth Chapter. Ugh.
Yeah, well, that's one way to spit all the bars for the Fifth Chapter theme song. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in for episode 111. I'm sure that you
whatever it is. I can't do that. I don't have an auto tune or anything.
No, well, definitely don't use auto tune if you're going to be listening to our show. We got 5 more fantastic chapters for you on episode 111. You will be seeing our intern, Little Brian, throughout the course of the show. But definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in. And if you're wondering what we're going to be talking about, we'll get to that in just a second. But I want to thanks to those who are listening via the podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, and also those who are watching tonight's show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Make sure you send in your feedback during the course of tonight's show. Dennis will be reading it throughout the course of the show. We might even throw some of your feedback up on the screen so everybody can see what you guys are sending in via Facebook and via YouTube. If you're wondering what we're going to be talking about during tonight's show, let's take a look at today's book. As you can see there in the second chapter, Major League Baseball is cracking down on these cheating pitchers. We'll tell you how and if it's going to work. And also, is there a deal to be made for Matt Boyd? In the third chapter, we go to the NBA playoffs where you've got some teams like the Lakers and the Knicks and the Mavs and Damian Lillard's Portland Trailblazers who are done for the year. We'll tell you what could be next for them. And then also tell you what we think about these first few games in the conference semifinals. In the fourth chapter, a lot of controversy over the weekend about a golfer with a 6-stroke lead who was forced to quit after the third round because of a coronavirus positive test. Did the PGA Tour make the right decision? And then in the fifth chapter, it's the major wager where Dennis and I will try to get you guys some big money. We got baseball, we've got basketball playoffs, we've got hockey playoffs, we've got potentially some prop bets out there. So Dennis and I will try to hook you guys up with a large swath of money. But Dennis, we'll start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the same old Lions. And that takes us to their organized team activities, their OTAs. They got a lot of new faces in town. That includes the head coach, Dan Campbell. That includes the quarterback by the name of Jared Goff. You're not really a big fan of his. And a couple of weeks ago, actually, I think it was about a week ago, Dan Campbell spoke to the media about his boy, Jared Goff, and we'll share exactly what he had to say with you guys so you can see what he thinks about his brand new quarterback. Do that right about here.
Where's his helmet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where is his helmet? Doesn't have it this time. But all right, here is what Dan Campbell said.
Go ahead, Dan. Spit it. A little low.
You can't hear it?
No.
All right, let's try that again.
He made some real wild throws out there. There were a couple like 5. I mean, they zipped him in there. They were on the money. I mean, come on. This guy was putting it out there and throwing him on a line. Practice or not, man, you had to be impressed.
All right, yeah, as you can see, still struggling with the new technology that we've got. All right, let me try this one more time. Get rid of this. What the heck?
Nope.
All right.
There he is. It was pretty close to what I had to say. He saw him in OTAs, and he made a number of throws, man, that wild throws. We're talking about just going out there, putting them on the money.
Yeah.
They were impressed.
All right, let's try this one more time.
All right.
Tell me if you can hear it now.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long time there's been another quarterback under center.
Yeah.
There we
first
go.
team snaps. What has Jared Goff been like around the guys, and how vital is it to have him in person and for these OTAs to be going on with him taking over under center?
That's Rose, wasn't it?
It's been big.
Brad Galley.
Anytime you get your quarterback,
Same channel.
Guys, the offensive line, the receivers, the backs, the tight ends, and let him work the system. Not only get used to the system himself, but then how he's going to run the system, and for those players around him to get used to it. It's been huge. And look, there again, we're only week one into it. I can tell you this: he throws a pretty ball, that's for sure. But I like his mannerisms. I like his command in the huddle, and I would say he's progressed and right kind of where you want him to progress at this point. You know, there again, we're not in team now. We're doing these walkthroughs, but there again, the first live 7-on-7 yesterday, just watching him throw and some of the things that come out of it. It's baby steps right now, and there again, it's good to have him here.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Coach Campbell gushing over his new quarterback throwing a pretty ball. And that was kind of interesting. And it makes you, hopefully, if you're a Lions fan, gush about the possibility of him taking the Lions to a playoff appearance, or at least winning the MVP in his first season as a Detroit Lions quarterback. But then you get this reality check from earlier today. Kyle Meinke was out at Same Old Lions OTAs. And we'll see if we can share with you guys what he was tweeting about your brand new quarterback, Jared Goff, right there. Ugh, that is not pretty. Quintez Cephas looked sharp today, but otherwise the day belonged to the defense. Jared Goff completed just one of his final 7 passes during goal line work. So that suggests that if Jared Goff can get the Lions inside the 10-yard line, their brand new place kicker better be ready to go. Dennis, what do you think about the Jared Goff buzz so far during OTAs?
Well, I look at it differently. Like, I take it away that Aaron Glenn's red zone defense is ready to step up to the challenge. Was able to take a former Pro Bowl quarterback and a guy that got to the Super Bowl and was able to keep him just 1-9 or 1-7 or whatever it was. No, you know what? I heard Campbell in those OTAs talking about, he had some real zip on the ball and made some real wild throws. And, he could do that. Like, he is a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, if he was a rookie quarterback, you'd like to hear that. It's good. It's better than saying, you know what? Hey, he's got a little time here. He's got to get used to it or whatever. Humidity was really affecting him. Ball was slipping out. He didn't say any of those things. Like, OTAs, when you don't have a pass rush, you're just out there in your shorts and you're able to throw the ball around, you better be able to zip it around and put it on the money and all those sort of things. So, the thing to me is I want Jared Goff to be great and show that he can be an elite quarterback. He hasn't shown that yet, although he showed some flashes, 3 and 4 years ago that maybe he could become a quarterback like that. And he was at the controls of number 1 offense overall in the NFL. So if he could do that and show that he's great, that would be nice. I don't think that, or I hope he really sucks. I don't want him to just show some flashes here and give some hope where you think like, it's going to be a tough call on whether or not they need to abort and try to get a QB. I want the decision to be really clear when we see it and say, you know what, no way are the Lions moving forward with this guy. I mean, they got 2 years. But so year 1, if he sucks, are we really going to, you're going to double down and say, well, we don't need a quarterback. No, you're going to know if you need a quarterback. So it's like, I would like him to be like a Jeremy Grant. He comes in as a real surprise, and the guys around him play well, and they lose because I don't think that they're going to be able to make the playoffs. So I'm sitting back and just taking it all in like it's, Troy Weaver running the show, and that, the team finished with the 2nd worst record in the league, and they get the number 2 overall pick. And, there's a clear line on what they need to do, with that number 2 overall pick. That's what I hope. Or are you muted? That'd be pretty sweet. No, you're there.
Yeah, I think if Lions fans could get the same type of excitement that the Pistons fans are getting out of Troy Weaver, that would be a big bonus, and it would require them to tank for another year. Obviously, they had a top 10 pick once again, and if they can get a top 10 pick in the top 5, preferably the top 2 or 3, with there not even needing to be an NFL lottery, I think that'd be huge for the future of the same old Lions. But when I look at the comments made by Dan Campbell regarding Jared Goff, like a lot of times when a team fires a coach or a manager and then hires a new one, they try to hire the opposite of what they previously had. You look at the Tigers, and obviously they didn't fire Jim Leland, but they went from an old school manager to a new school manager who was a nerd in Brad Ausmus, then back to an old school manager in Ron Gardenhire, and then to a new school analytics guy in AJ Hinch. So they say, oh, we didn't like this, we need to try this. We didn't like that, so we need to go back to this. And you look at the same old Lions, they went from a fiery guy in Jim Schwartz to a stoic guy in Jim Caldwell. They also went from a so-called genius in Matt Patricia to a meathead in Dan Campbell. But they also may have gone from a guy who had terrible relationships with his players in Matt Patricia to a guy who is probably going to be labeled as a player's coach. Whether he's going to be a good coach or not, we don't know. But when you think about the term player's coach, that's a coach who gets along with his players, is not going to be like Matt Patricia and is going to be trying to embarrass his players in team meetings and call them names and try to run them out of town if they get some sort of ego or something like that. I think that Dan Campbell is probably going to want to keep the best players on the Detroit Lions when they actually get some good players. So I look at the comments that he was making. Maybe Jared Goff was throwing a pretty ball, but I think that because Campbell likes being one of the guys, Campbell was one of the guys relatively recently, that he probably wants to build his guys up in the media and wants to be that player's coach guy. But that said, I think that what these reporters are saying matters. When you see Kyle Mikey typing just a flat out unflattering stat, 1 for 7 in the red zone, that's pertinence. I also saw a headline from the Detroit Free Press, their website, and it said, what was it? Good day for defense as Jared Goff struggles. I mean, for those of us who weren't at practice, which is the vast majority of us, when they say that, I think it does matter. You know, he can talk about all the pretty balls that he wants, and that quote was actually from May 28th. But today, he obviously was terrible. And maybe, like you were joking, it's because of that great Aaron Glenn defense. Maybe it's because Jared Goff sucked.
Maybe. I think, the one thing you said, what you call Dan Campbell less than impressive or something, or like whatever it was. But I saw Brad Holmes today. He took offense at really, what was it last week? The Colin Cowherd show. Joy Taylor took some shots at him because he was wearing the racing helmet, and Holmes came out and was really like, defending his coach and talking about, like this guy's smarter than you think, man. He's sharp, So whatever you said about him, Brad Holmes would completely disagree with your take.
Well, as far as the race car helmet, I don't think that's a big deal at all. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's going to be doing the Detroit Grand Prix. He's going to be the Grand Marshal of it, and he's excited about it. So he puts on a race car helmet. That's not a big deal. And if he's having fun during an OTA's press conference, like, how is that going to affect his ability to coach the team during a game in the fall or during the OTAs before or after that particular press conference? I think that a lot of people out there in the media who wanted to criticize him, and you mentioned Joy Taylor, they were just looking for something to peg on him. Wait till the game starts. The Lions are going to suck. The Lions always hire bad coaches. There'll be a real reason to criticize Dan Campbell. And if you want, go back to the earlier press conference, the intro press conference, where he was talking about being a kneecap nibbler as a cannibal. But putting on a race car helmet because you're excited to be the Grand Marshal of the Grand Prix, that's petty. That's nothing.
I was a little surprised they played the race card, this early in his tenure.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. There's one part I didn't care. Like, you got to be yourself. So you go out there. If he wins, everybody will think it's great. Like, people liked when Matt Patricia had a pencil behind his ear until he was a, terrible football coach. But that was the one thing about the Lions fans, like super uber Lion fans, getting on Twitter. Like, I had no problem with Dan Campbell. Like, oh, really? You didn't have any problem with the new coach? Like, you were the same guys that were over here jocking Patricia, saying that he was playing chess while everybody else was playing checkers. It's like, all right. Like, if you're going to be critical, can you be are you always critiquing the team and trying to be fair? Or every slap, every new coach and every new regime is in love with them. So that's just the way it goes.
I like the way this team is headed. They haven't had a real practice yet, haven't had a training camp. But yeah, I like all the guys that are brought in.
This feels different.
Yeah, it always feels different until you realize it's the same.
It is different.
Yeah, they're different people. They're different folks that are about to lead the Lions to lose some more. But think about all the people that
you're on the other side there, joking it a little bit, riding them. But I understand that part.
Well, I was going to say, think about all the people that praised the hiring of Bob Quinn. Like, hey, I get that things didn't go well when the Chiefs hired themselves a former executive from the Patriots, but this is different because Bob Quinn's been there for a long time. He's going to find a way to get it to work. And, you know what? Jim Caldwell, he wasn't good enough because he was just winning more games than he lost. But this is different. They've got a Patriot way. The Lions are going to have a Patriot way now, and they're going to say that 9-7 isn't good enough. And look, they're bringing in all these expatriate players. Things are really going to start to turn in the right direction. And then guess what? Despite all that Patriot stuff, it ended up being the same old Lions. The same old Lions.
I'm not sure. I tried to put the feedback up. I was able to do it last week, but for some reason I am not in control of that. So if either you or Jelinek can throw up some of the feedback, we got a ton coming in. We can roll through it a little bit.
All right. Let's go with
starting with Beth. All
right, we'll go with Beth. Beth says, we go through this every year. It's nothing more or nothing less. And, when it comes to the Lions rebuilding, I've said it before, I'll say it again, every 2 to 5 years, they rebuild. This is what they do. And you can consider a rebuild a new front office. You can consider a rebuild a new coach. You consider it a new quarterback. But every 2 to 5 years, they change out at least one of them. And this offseason, they changed out all three.
Yeah, having said that, I do hope they're getting it right. But, they're not getting the benefit of the doubt from me. I'm not, going to be like, this just feels different. Like,
No. Feeling different, that doesn't mean anything. How about this one from PB? Peanut Butter says, new surroundings will take some time to adjust. Dan Campbell will have a better grasp of his team compared to Matt Patricia. It's also not saying much because Matt Patricia had no grasp of his team and he ran the best players out of town. Like he might have been nerdologically sound, and when it comes to helping Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos develop rockets to go into space, he'd be perfect for that. But in terms of interpersonal relationships, not a rocket scientist.
Yeah, really. When it came to Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, the Fith chapter could have been out there running things the last couple of years, and what was the defense going to be that much worse? Was the draft going to be that much worse? We could have had a better grasp of what was going on there by playing pin the tail on a donkey.
Yeah. Matt Patricia saying, let's install a gigantic hill at the training facility so he can run the players up it. Brilliant. How did that work out? How about this one? This is a comment from you. Yo. Very insightful.
Well, I was testing to see if I had to log on and to see if I could get it going or not. And then I hit log on and it logged me off. Or wanted me to put my email on.
All right. How about this one from Roger? I want to see if Campbell will keep the same energy when the wheels fall off and the season becomes a complete dumpster fire.
Well, that's, what, Roger, I agree with what you're saying there. All the Lion fans that are out there with their pom-poms and everything feels different. We do know, that this team is projected, along with the Texans, to be the worst teams, the bottom two teams in the NFL. We're talking about 5 or 6 wins, and all this enthusiasm about Dan Campbell and biting kneecaps and everything else. It's just all just fun and everything. If this team gets off to a 1-6 start, are all the same people going to be like, "Oh, yeah, this is just what we thought"? No, really got it going.
Well, but the thing is, so many Lions fans are suckers that they get on that 2-game winning streak. Oh, I told you! Look at them. They went from 0-3 to 2-3. If they win this game in Game 6, all of a sudden they're back. Campbell's biting off those kneecaps, and those teams can't run around without a kneecap. A 2-game winning streak.
Yeah, well, football's supposed to be fun. We forget that. If you're a Lion fan, there hasn't been a lot of fun. So usually the off season is your time, and leading up to drafts would usually have a high pick. That's your time. And then when you have a new regime and you haven't lost it again, these guys are undefeated. So you're always thinking if you're a football fan, you got to be an optimist.
Mm-hmm. How about this comment from our intern Brian Jelinek? At least nobody's expecting the Lions to be good this year. Expectations are really low. Let's bring in our intern Brian Jelinek. What did you think about the comments?
I said it in the chat. It's a lot like Jim Harbaugh when he first got to Michigan. So much hype, so much energy. I love seeing it from Dan Campbell, but who knows what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years from now after the Lions take 15 years off his life. So, also on top of that, every year during OTAs, we hear that the Lions quarterback's playing out of his mind, making really good throws. Every year we hear that. It's like Miggy in spring training. He's in the best shape of his life every year. So who knows if we can actually believe it or not, but.
Well, we can't because it's the same old Lions.
Yeah.
Now, you'll get some fans, and we'll talk about them winning like 9-10 games. You get that every year, even with this, because they'll buy into the, the off-season hype and everything. But it just takes, you get the local reporters, too. They get around. They get sucked in a little bit, too. They don't want to make any broad, proclamations about any record. But then there'll be somebody nationally like, hey, you know what? I got the Lions. And then that's the matchstick. For the local fan.
A national expert said it.
Peter King says this team. Peter King says that the synergy around this team is like reminiscent of what they had in Miami last year. Expect the Lions to surprise, and that'll like the matchstick for Lion fans to talk about. Or Rodgers actually does get dealt. That'll be a huge push for Lion fans too. Like, hey, this thing's wide open.
Yeah, especially if he gets dealt to the Lions.
Oh, my God.
If Rodgers gets dealt out of the North, automatically Lion fans will be like, hey, this is anybody's division. You can say, well, wouldn't it be? You got a rookie quarterback. I know it's a 3-headed monster in Chicago, but they're probably going to trade Foles, and then it's going to be the Red Rifle and Fields. And you can look at it and say, rookie quarterback of the Red Rifle, let's go. I'll sign up for that. And, you're talking about Captain Kirk there in Minnesota.
When people around the country think about Rodgers leaving and it's anybody's division, they're thinking, hey, the Vikings, after missing the playoffs for 1 year, could go back. The Bears and the Packers just made the playoffs last year. Yeah, anybody's division, any one of those 3 teams can do it. Oh, the Lions are still there? Like I was saying, anybody's division except for the Lions. That's what they're going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just telling you what the fans will do. I'm not talking about.
That's the dumb, small, loud minority, though. I think a majority of the people understand that the Lions are going to suck.
I think you wait to get hooked in. You're always looking for something to get hooked in. Rodgers getting traded out of the division would do it for a lot of Lion fans. And remember, you just need one person nationally say, look, that's the guy. It seems likely it would be Peter King.
Nobody in the national media is saying that right now, though. So let's try to keep that.
Not right now. Not right now.
All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter. And that takes us to what, Dennis?
It takes us to the MLB sticky substance scandal. And what's going on here is that pitchers are being accused of using rosin bags, suntan lotion, all kinds of stuff, like Kenny Rogers back in the World Series with a dirty hand and everything. And before we get to Matt Boyd and his trade value, you think this is no deal, big deal? Where are you at?
Well, I think this is a big deal, and it's about bleeping time that they did something about this because it's there. it's just been so obvious that the foreign substances are part of the game, and everybody can see what they're doing when you see a guy on the mound and he's before every single pitch, he's going back. I got a prop here. But for every single pitch, he's going like this, licking his fingers, which you're not allowed to do. And then he's rubbing his hat. And if you get a camera angle underneath the hat, you might see a stain underneath there. And it's not a sweat stain. Or he'll go to the back of his cap and rub it, and there'll be a stain back there. And then he'll rub up that ball, and then it'll be ready to go. And that's not legal when it comes to pitching in baseball. You're not allowed to have foreign substances, but the opposing team allows it. The umpires allow it. Rob Manfred for years has been allowing it, and I think that's part of the reason that we've seen such great numbers and such great numbers for pitchers in recent years, and why it's been more lopsided in favor of pitchers in recent years, because when you've got more sticky stuff on your fingers, you get a higher spin rate, and you can perhaps throw the ball a little bit faster, but more importantly, your breaking ball will break a little bit more, and if it breaks a little bit more, that makes it a more difficult pitch to hit. Now, Major League Baseball was throwing out basically feelers over the last couple of weeks saying, hey, we're going to start cracking down on this. And then I believe last week they said, yeah, beginning this week, they're going to really start cracking down on it. And we've already seen some results, because according to a CBS Sports report, Garrett Cole saw a 6% drop in spin rate in his last start from his previous start. And in that start, he was not typical Garrett Cole. 5 earned runs, 5 hits, 2 walks in 5 innings pitched against the Rays. That's not typical Garrett Cole. Perhaps it's because he didn't have as much spin. Similarly, on Sunday, Trevor Bauer saw a 10% drop in spin rate. And you look at his numbers, 3 runs allowed, 6 hits, 4 walks in 6 innings pitched. Those guys were pitching. I mean, in terms of Trevor Bauer, he was pitching more like a Matt Boyd type of pitcher, while giving up 5 runs in 5 innings. I mean, that's pitching like Jordan Zimmerman, and that's what Garrett Cole did. So it seems like initially the results of these pitchers not using sticky stuff is working out. But just when you think about how obvious it was, I mean, it's like a student showing up for a test, and when he sits down on the front of the class. And when he begins the test, he read the textbook, and he's reading the answers out of the textbook and filling it in. And the teacher looks at the student, sees that the student's using the textbook, and then goes back to chomping down on the apple. That's what's been going on for a long time. And his, that student's GPA has been going up, and it's time for that GPA to start going down unless the student wants to start studying better. And in this situation, that means the pitchers need to start pitching better, as opposed to using the cheat sheet of the text of the sticky stuff.
Well, look, you know what? Using
great analogy.
Yeah, good job, chap. I liked it. I used to just write the answers right on my hand. I'd be over here going like this. Really was.
We had a guy in my school. I wasn't in the class at the time because I didn't take Spanish, but someone told me that there was a kid in Spanish class who wrote the answers on a pencil, but he had it like a flag. So it was like kind of sticking out. Like there were some students that would write on the line or on the side of the number 2 pencil, but this guy had like a flag that was waving a paper with Spanish terms on it. And yes, he got caught.
Well, look, for as long as I can remember, Gaylord Perry was, Vaseline on his lid. There's, for the longest the game has been going on, there's been foreign substances. So, and there is the part where you get into a situation where, it's hot or it's muggy like today, that the pitchers do need to have something that they can, they got the rosin back there that they can go and get the grip. Now, they're going overboard here. I don't know if it is, because I have to think some of it is. I mean, this is the year of the pitcher. If you got all these no-hitters, the strikeout rates when I was growing up were 12.5%. They have doubled. They're up to 25% right now. Theo Epstein, who, the former GM of the Red Sox and Cubs, he's now an advisor for Rob Manfred. I listened to him last month. He said that the reason that the pitchers are so far ahead now of the hitters has been the technology. They've got the biomechanical breakdown where, they're able to really, work on their form, and they've got all these different machines for the spin rate. He was chalking it up to the technology really helping out the pitchers. And, if that was the case and now they're adding to it, yeah, you need to get out there like Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun, and you need to pat these guys down and make sure that they're not doing that. Like, you want to just have it even. Like with steroids, yeah, the hitters were doing it, but so was Clemens. There was some of that. The ballparks making them small, that was the advantage to the hitters. The baseball, tightening those things up, that was the advantage to the hitters too. So now there's a swing to the pitchers here. You got to try to balance that out. You don't want, teams scoring, averaging under 3 runs a game and striking out 25% of the time. And I know people chalk it up to the shifts and people just swinging for the fences and launch angle and hitting towards the bottom of the baseball. It feels a little bit like hockey when it comes to baseball. People don't necessarily want to talk about the games and the standings and what's going on. It's all about, let's get some bigger base pass. Let's lower the mound. Let's move it back. Let's eliminate the shift. Let's, check the pitchers
Just
in
start
between
with
innings.
the cheating. Start with the cheating.
Yeah, well, they need to. They should put the clamps down on this for sure.
And I'm interested to see over the next month how things change, because it's a very small sample size when you look at one start by Garrett Cole and one start by Trevor Bauer. But with this being implemented like in the next week, or it might have already even be implemented, that they're going to be cracking down on teams using the sticky substance. I know that there's a story about Justin Verlander going to the Astros and learning about new sticky substance, and that helped him out with his spin rate. If we start to see batting averages go up, we start to see pitchers giving up a heck of a lot more runs, then that could be exactly what baseball is looking for to level the playing field. It's not going to do anything in terms of all these relievers coming out of the bullpen throwing 98 miles per hour, which has been this guys are throwing harder than ever. But if you got breaking balls that aren't breaking as much, it just suggests that it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to hit the pitches.
Yeah, we'll see. We're going to need more than one couple days or a week or two through the rotation. It's probably going to take at least till let's say July 4th.
I've been listening to
High Heat.
Well, no, I was going to say Fangraphs, and they've been talking about this for a while, and they love to talk about Trevor Bauer in particular, and because he's been talking for years about sticky substance on balls, and hey, isn't it? He's been tweeting out, hey, isn't it a surprise that all of a sudden this guy's spin rate jumped up by X%? I wonder if he's using sticky stuff. And he basically blatantly went out and decided to do so in Major League Baseball's face. And then his went up. And I think he tweeted out a couple years ago, no, it's just natural that my spin rate went up. So I think that we could see, because when you think about all the technology that they have in ballparks with TrackMan and everything else, you can calculate spin rate. And a lot of times managers and pitching coaches are getting warning flags about a pitcher during the course of a game because they're told, hey, your pitcher's spin rate is down X%. Perhaps there's an issue there. So if they can see in the first inning of a game, and certainly after one start, that spin rates are down for a particular pitcher and they're down throughout the game, it wouldn't take a month. It wouldn't take probably even a turn through the rotation to see that this is having an effect.
Well, speaking of pitchers and spin rates, a guy that's got a pretty good spin rate on the Tigers is Matthew Boyd. And the question is, coming up to the deadline at the end of July, Al Avila is making Matthew Boyd available via trade. What do you think that the young left-hander might be able to fetch for Al Avila?
Yeah, I saw an article earlier today that listed the Braves, Cardinals, Mets, Cubs, and Blue Jays as options for Matt Boyd. But, I mean, look, everybody can put out a list of potential suitors for a trade target, particularly in the month of June and early June. And certainly fan bases like the fan base of a team that's going to trade away that particular player, or a fan base that might want to receive that particular player are going to be interested in reading that article. So I understand that. But look, Matt Boyd in his first 6 starts, a 2.27 ERA. Matt Boyd in his last 5 starts, a 6.08 ERA. And we'll see if he can improve on that today. But we've seen this story play out before. In 2019, Matt Boyd had 2 very good first months of the season, and then the last 4 months were just like the previous 4 years of his career. The old Matt Boyd, the non-aberration Matt Boyd, came right back. So I'm expecting that, and it seems like we're already perhaps seeing that right now with his last 5 starts having that 6.08 ERA. Matt Boyd is not a good pitcher. People need to understand that, and when they do come to understand that Matt Boyd is not a good pitcher, well, things start to happen because you start to expect him to regress to the mean after a great start, and that's exactly what is done. You start to expect the Tigers not to trade him away, because if you are a contender like the Braves, or you are a team that's going to try to get another piece to put you over the top to contend for that second wild card spot, like perhaps the Blue Jays, you're not going to be sitting in a GM and assistant GM and director of scouting meeting saying to yourselves, why don't we go acquire a guy who, outside of 3.5 months of his 7-year baseball career in the majors, has been a number 5 caliber pitcher? I think that could boost us up. Or you're not going to say, we need to acquire a guy who's never posted a sub 4.30 ERA for an entire season to secure our bullpen. You're not going to do that if you're trying to secure a playoff spot, or if you're trying to go deep into the playoffs. Look at numbers like that and say, this is what we want. So when I see that, when I see Matt Boyd struggling once again, when I see him on the trade block, I said, look, Avila was criticized by a lot of folks 2 years ago for not trading Boyd. I was not one of them, because I realized he was not a good pitcher and nobody would want him. And this year, when he doesn't trade him, I'm going to assume it's because Boyd stunk in the next month and a half leading up to or 2 months leading up to the trade deadline. And I will not criticize him when he doesn't trade a bad pitcher.
Well, you used a prop earlier. Let me use one. All right. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Let me see if I can get it in here. Now, when you're talking about Matthew Boyd
good
a couple of years ago, and we'll talk about this coming up on Tigers Live. Gleyber Torres, the outstanding youngster for the Pinstripers, Avila almost swindled the Yankees and was able to get Gleyber Torres for Matthew Boyd, except Avila, rightfully so, wanted some sweeteners in that deal. And when you're talking about spin rate and a lefty and being a professional and somebody that can pound the strike zone, you look to the beginning of this year or the beginning of the first half of 2 years ago, and you will see that Matthew Boyd will be coveted. You're going to need a return like Gleyber Torres or another top 100 prospect or two. If you're Avila, you don't want to give him up.
Okay, Simo. Now, so what does Dennis think of this? Because obviously Simo thinks that you can get all that stuff.
Well, he hasn't pitched well. You know what? But if you're a team that's looking for a fifth starter, I think that in somebody that can get hot and stretches, plus he's a lefty. And maybe you look, and I haven't chopped up the numbers here. If you're not necessarily looking at him like, hey, he's going to give us 6-7 innings, and you're not, if you're a contender, you're not looking at him as a top of the rotation guy. You're clearly just looking to add some pitching. But could he be somebody that you could think, hey, a situational or middle innings or starter or 3 innings or something like that? I don't think the price is going to be very high, and I think he could be effective in that. And you've seen spurts where he can get hot, and he does have good stuff. He gives up too many home runs. That's one of the deals. The
spurt is every other year for a month and a half to 2 months. And when you are a contender, you're not looking for him to join your team with an every other year strong record in April. You want him for September to ensure you get in, and for October, assuming you get in, to lead you deep into the playoffs and hopefully for a World Series. Matt Boyd ain't that guy. So, Tigers fans can get their hopes up talking about, hey, we can get Gleyber Torres and we can get this guy, we can get this top 100 prospect. Yeah, they could point They can point to Simo and say, we expect this. But the fact of the matter is that dude's just not a good pitcher. And if you're a playoff team, you want good players on your team. You don't want typical Tigers on your team. Nobody's going to trade for him. Like I get that a lot of folks were saying that Avila wanted Gleyber Torres a couple of years ago, but I don't think that there was a trade market even for a guy half of a Gleyber Torres going to the Detroit Tigers, because considering that he had, like, think about this. He had 2 good months, and I think that some GMs are thinking to themselves, maybe there is something here, but let me wait. I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm not going to quickly on June 1st or June 8th, 2019, just say, all right, let me trade all these guys in order to get Matt Boyd. So what do? They waited a month, and he stunk in June. And some of them probably said, well, let's see if he picks it up in July. And by the time they got to the All-Star game, he continued that trend. And then by the time they got to the All-Star or the trade deadline at the end of July, it was another 2 solid months of trash. And the only folks in the world who thought that the Tigers should still get some sort of king's ransom from Matt Boyd after 2 straight trash months were Tigers fans.
Simo thought they could still get something for him.
Tigers fans.
All right. I do think, and the unfortunate part here, the 2 guys that they may have been able to get something for are both on the injured list. Spencer Turnbull with that forearm strain. That's always ominous, because you think about Tommy John surgery, although AJ Hinch gave him more positive. Maybe he was just blowing smoke there, but then the whole thing with Fulmer, maybe there could have been something there for a team as well if he was pitching. Look at people looking for bullpen help; they're always that way. But going on the injured list with a tweaked shoulder or whatever it is, that was another ominous move there. They're 2 guys that teams might be interested in, not going to be available for a while.
No, and I guess the good thing is you don't have to worry about the Tigers getting another bogus prospect like Daz Cameron or Jake Rogers or a Dawel Lugo in return.
Yeah, well, there's a way to look at it, glass half full.
Avila, what are you supposed to do? All right, let's turn the page now to the 3rd chapter. And that takes us to the NBA playoffs. And we do have an update before we get into the nuts and bolts of this chapter. Perhaps this will have an effect on one or both of us in the major wager.
Let's hear it.
In the first quarter, the Philadelphia 76ers picked up where they left off at the end of game 4. They have a 28-13 lead.
Damn.
28-13 lead.
Oh, are you sure that's not like the Nets from last night?
No, it's not the Nets from last night. Although that is similar to what the Nets did last night. It's still 28-13. But as we get to this, turn the pace of the 3rd chapter, we've got some winners and some losers to discuss. And we'll start off with the winners. And by winners, I mean those that won their first round series. We got 4 matchups going on right now. The Suns have a 1-0 lead on the Nuggets. The Jazz play game 1 against the Clippers tonight. The Hawks almost blew a monster game 1 lead against Philly, but they hung on to get that 1-0 lead, and now they're in real trouble, down by 15 points in game 2. And then you got the Nets, who didn't have James Harden for 99% of game 1. And in game 2, after winning game 1, in game 2 they won by 39 and have a 2-0 series lead against not the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm back to calling them the Milwaukee Bambis after that performance. But Dennis, what stands out to you about these conference semifinals matchups so far?
Well, that Kyrie Irving and KD are a 1-2 punch that can't be stopped. I mean, these guys are incredible scorers. I mean, Kyrie Irving, every time he has the ball, the crowd's oohing it on, and for good reason, man. He's putting out shimmies and shoulder fakes that are, throwing guys off, and he's just amazing to watch. And Durant is showing, he's the best player in the league. Move over onto the Kupo if you can't hit a jump shot. And your team looks like you're in trouble. I mean, Durant is just it's incredible. Like they don't need Hart. Like that's the thing. So that stood out. I mean, the Nets look great. I think the Suns look great too. And they didn't even need Chris Paul at the beginning of the game, although he was awesome in the second half. But Ayton and Booker were fantastic. I mean, that's a nice trio that they have with these guys that they're They're rounding out Mikal Bridges from Villanova. He looks good. The Suns look awesome, and it was going to be a fun series to watch. But when you lose your starting backcourt and you're starting some 30-year-old dude from Argentina,
Campazzo.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a nice bench player or something like that. But you need more. The Joker is going to need a little bit more. Although Roberts is pretty good, right? He's fantastic. It's a nice 1-2 punch, but just not enough there. That has stood out, and that the Clippers scare the hell out of me. I picked them last year to go to the finals. For some reason, I did again this year, and I couldn't be like, if I really had money on the Clippers or I was a Clippers fan, I don't know if I could handle it.
Yeah, well, they are one of the 8 winners that got to the second round. When I look at the Clippers, they obviously got big games from Kawhi in back-to-back games to get past the Mavericks. But I think that running into the Jazz tonight is going to be too much. It's a team that plays well as a unit. They hit a lot of threes. I think they set the NBA record for threes hitting the season. And I think that one of the big keys for the Clippers, you also got to give credit to Reggie Jackson. He had a monster game 7. Who would have thought that he'd be hitting Steph Curry type threes?
A couple in there too.
Yeah, after not playing the first 5 games. But Paul George is supposed to be the number 2. It's supposed to be a 1-2 punch. You got Irving and Durant with Harden out. You got you got Embiid and Simmons on Philly. There isn't really a number 2 on the Atlanta Hawks, but it was supposed to be in terms of having a championship team. I wouldn't say Capella, but he's a good player. It's supposed to be Kawhi Leonard and Paul George was just, a decent player. He wasn't a superstar, and you're paying him to be a superstar. Kawhi Leonard fled Toronto and called up Paul George when he was in Oklahoma City playing with Russell Westbrook and said, I want you to come here not so that I can have a decent 20-point per game score. He's saying, I need you to carry the load some nights. I need you to put up 30, 35 some nights and be a superstar. And Paul George just looks like a good player. That's a big reason why that series went 7. So I think that if he's going to continue to play like that, you're looking at the Jazz winning that series in about 5 games. I like the Bucks heading into their series against the Nets because of how they were able to dominate the Miami Heat. And I like them even more 20 seconds into game 1 when James Harden got hurt, because one of the big reasons I still don't like the Nets is because of their injury issues. And I would not be surprised if Irving or Harden get hurt in the next game. But because they're not hurt right now, the Bambis look like they're pretty much done, and it's going to be done in 4 games because, as long as those 2 are healthy, and then you start looking at the depth that they have. Joe Harris, a flat-out sniper. Bruce Brown has become a better offensive threat since he's left Detroit.
Yeah,
you look at
it sounds funny, but you're right.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. And then Blake Griffin, he's found the fountain of youth. All of a sudden, he's dunking. Like, I was listening to the radio broadcast yesterday, and they said, oh, he looked like he could jump over a Kia. Meanwhile, in his last season with the Pistons, he didn't dunk at all. But he's finishing alley-oops. He's posterizing folks and all that. So he's found himself now that he's with the Brooklyn Nets. So
what? He wasn't dunking with the Pistons, but you know what? He
was just a post-up player.
No, the first year he was hitting some threes, and he's got that flat three a little bit. So, I'm
talking about his last year.
Yeah, his last year, I think, dealing with the injuries, and plus he wanted out. But it's not a huge surprise. He's a pretty good player, and when you don't have to pay him $35 million, he's a pretty good option to have.
Well, yeah, I didn't think he was going to be this good of an option because he was not that good of an option his last part of his season with Detroit this past year, and then last year and the pandemic shortened season, he wasn't that good. But all of a sudden, when you have this type of Blake Griffin going with Durant, going with Irving, going with some of these other key guys off the bench, they're a much deeper threat. And then you look at the Hawks and the 76ers. This is intriguing, and I'm looking forward to watching the second half of this game because I actually picked the Hawks to win this series in 6 after watching, after number 1, seeing Joel Embiid was going to be entering the series with an injury. But number two, I was watching Daily Wager on either Thursday or Friday, and all those guys are saying, "Oh, look at the value here. You got to take the Hawks. Hawks. It's like, all right. And so I took them in game one, and it paid off. But the end of that game and the start to this game is very troubling. And I obviously we can't see what's happening in the start of this game, but at the end of game one, it was as if the Hawks had never seen a full court press or a trap before.
Well, let me tell you what's happening with the Hawks. Trae Young is emerging as a superstar,
Yes.
and he's got unlimited range. And then he's not the quickest guy, but the floater that he has, what did he shoot the most floaters in the NBA? They've got, a stat for everything. Floaters, when you see other guys, I mean, it's it's nice to have, in your bag of tricks there, but, more you'd look for, some kind of power game or being able to finish there. Floaters don't seem like they would be that high of a percentage of shot unless you're Trae Young, man. He's adept at being able to teardrop that one in from anywhere. And then if you come out and you think that you're going to try to block that, he's just blowing by guys and doing layups like he's in the layup line. It's amazing to watch.
But he couldn't do that in the last 5-6 minutes of the game. That trap with those tall Philly defenders, I mean, it was turnover after turnover after turnover. It got down to a 2-point game.
Well, I know. That's why, it wasn't the guy on the what do you call that ESPN show? I'm talking about the Major Wager.
Yeah,
I've been listening to that guy at the end of the show. Guy with the beard, good-looking bald guy.
I know who you're talking about. With regards to the losers, because when it comes to these NBA playoffs, you always got to look at who didn't make it to a particular round and what they should do next. I mean, you've got the Mavericks who didn't get to the conference semifinals after blowing a 3-2 series lead because they couldn't win a fourth game on the road, and they couldn't win a game at home either. You look at the Blazers, they lost in 6, and they already made a big change because they mutually agreed to separate themselves from their coach, Terry Stotts. And they also had an IG post, a cryptic IG post by Damian Lillard suggesting that maybe he wants out or a change of scenery. You got the Knicks, perhaps. You got the Knicks who weren't too competitive with the Hawks and losing in 5. And then you got the Lakers who left the playoffs with a whimper. I certainly was not surprised to see them get hurt and lose to the Phoenix Suns. But you got two of the biggest stars in the game that are out of the playoffs sitting at home. What's next for those first-round losers?
Yeah, well, I was surprised by the Lakers. What's next is that you get out there and you act like the Nets, man, and you just get into the offseason and you just court. You try to get Damian Lillard if you're the Lakers. That's what you try to do. And, you get that trio. And, I know there's a lot of people say what the Nets are doing is bad for basketball. They play a third of the season. What they guys play, the big 3, 8 games together, and now they're just getting together in the postseason, and then they look awesome. Listen, that's not very good for basketball overall. I get that, but the NBA offseason is as exciting. It's like the Lions offseason. Like NBA fans are like, okay, season's over. All right, let's go. Let's get Damian Lillard. The Knicks want him. He's going to LA. Let's see. And it just becomes these chess pieces moving all around. And if you're a big enough superstar, wherever you're at, you don't like the situation. You're like, get me the hell out of here. Or, I'm just going to, I'm going to do a hard, eat my way out of town. So, it's that. And the thing for the Mavs right now, so it'd be great to be a Mavs fan. Doncic is just so incredible. I know you were watching. I watch the games, but I DVR them and I'm speeding through them. But then sometimes on there, I saw you going crazy in the first half as I was just getting ready to watch that game with good reason. Man, Doncic put on, this incredible show. He needs some help. Tim Hardaway Jr. can't be your second best player and, relying on Trey Burke down at the end of the bench, a couple of Michigan guys. That's not going to happen. But, poor Zingas. You got to get him out of there if you can somehow. And, to find a real second player there for it. But, Doncic is awesome. I mean, I take that away from the playoff. There's some real analysis for you. I mean, he's just great to watch. He's a superstar. And, it's he's the real deal.
Yeah, I think the big key is going to be what Damian Lillard chooses to do, because you look at that Instagram post that he had at the end of the year, and it was the night of their Game 6 loss, and it suggested that he wanted some sort of big change. Now, maybe that's a change of scenery. Maybe he just wanted to get rid of the head coach, Terry Stotts, and Terry Stotts is now out. So if you're the Blazers, I think that what you want to do is obviously keep Damian Lillard. And in order to do that, you've got to get him some help, because they had CJ McCollum out for most of the year, big chunk of the year, but he came back for the last month of the season and for the playoffs. And I mean, he was kind of like Paul George. You're expecting CJ McCollum to be a superstar player, or at least a star player, and he was just decent. And he was not giving the Blazers the Robin they were expecting to Damian Lillard's Batman. So that, I think, they have to find a way to upgrade his number 2 if they want to keep him there. Otherwise, I have a feeling you're going to see Damian Lillard do what a lot of stars in the NBA have done, and that is to ask for a trade or demand a trade. And in the NBA, like, if you ask for a trade and you're a star, number one, you are out and you get to name your destination. And I mean, we've seen that so many times throughout the years. You look at Anthony Davis. I want to go to the Lakers. Boom, gets traded to the Lakers. You look at James Harden. I want to go to the Nets. Oh, we're not going to trade you to the Nets. Boom, a couple months later, he gets traded to the Nets. This is just what happens. So if either Lillard's going to have a list of teams, or he's going to name a team. And I think the 2 teams, you already mentioned the Lakers, but I think 2 teams that should target him are 2 other teams that were first-round exits. Knicks. And those are the Knicks, yes. And obviously Knicks fans have done a very good job of photoshopping Lillard in the Knicks jersey. And also the Mavericks. Like, can you imagine Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic? Like, Luka Doncic stepping 6 feet beyond the arc, drilling the 3, and then Lillard saying, I'm going to go 10 feet behind the arc because I am going to make us into the Texas Splash Brothers. Now, that would be some real legitimate help with a dominant backcourt, 2 great ball handlers that can drive, that can shoot threes, that would just be a menace for opposing teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, what? Just wait. Like, we're already talking about the offseason. We're only in the second round. See, it's exciting. That's the NBA.
Yeah, let's look at some of the feedback we've got. Here's one from our intern, Brian Jelinek. I have the Hawks at plus 205. Yikes. And right now, hey, the Hawks are making a comeback. The last time we checked on them, they were down by 15. Now, early in the second quarter, it's Philly 33, Atlanta 25. The spread was Philly by 6. So if you bet on the Hawks to win, like Jelinek did, or you bet on the if you bet on the Hawks like Jelinek did, you're feeling a little better. If you bet on the Sixers minus the 6, it's early, but you're feeling a little bit more nervous. And instead of just reading his comment and assuming what he's feeling right now, let's go to little Brian Jelinek. Is that a Luke Kennard jersey?
Luke Kennard Pistons, baby. Absolutely. I'll always love that man, even though he sucked here. I'm pissed that we don't have Donovan Mitchell. But I can never bet on the Mavs again. I tried to ride with them 3 times throughout the playoffs. Didn't work out. So I don't know what they're going to do. They can't have Porzingis on the team anymore, though. I don't know what they're going to do about that.
Well, apparently Porzingis is not satisfied with his role. He wants a bigger role on the team. And, I'd say, all right, if that's what you want, trade you to Houston. Play alongside Christian Wood. You get a bunch of run there.
Is Porzingis?
I was just going to say, I saw some Pistons scuttlebutt about, some of the Pistons Twitter saying, hey, give the keys to Porzingis. When he was a solo artist in New York, he was pretty good. Like most people were. That got ratioed pretty quick.
Yeah, well, he was also healthy at the start of his tenure in New York. Then he started getting injuries. Then the Knicks traded him away, and he continued to be injury-plagued in Dallas because they had more off days during the playoffs. He was able to play every game, but now when he's healthy, he's just a decent player.
Is he even able to play 50% of the games he's in? Like, does he get to that mark?
Yeah, I think he plays over 24 minutes a game.
Jelinek, did you gamble before it became legal, or are you kind of like a Brian come lately? Started you downloaded a couple of the apps, gambling's legal, so now you're It's party every night. Let's
Yeah,
go.
I thought I'd get into it. I got some free money through the app, and all my friends have done it illegally in the past. I wanted to get in on it, so here we are. I can't do illegal stuff though; it freaks me out.
How have you done? Have you used your free money, or you had to deposit or anything?
How have I done?
You haven't used the apps that I suggested you use yet, because if you had and you'd use my sign-up code, I'd have some free money. So we're waiting on you to do that.
I like having one, because if I have more than one, it's going to freak me out.
No. Here's some advice for you, little Brian Jelinek, and for everybody out there. You need to have multiple sports betting apps, and here's the big reason why. You can, for instance, if you're looking at tonight's game, the Sixers versus the Hawks, you might see that on one sports book it would be Sixers -6, and another it'd be Sixers -5.5. And if you're betting on the Sixers, you want to take that 5.5. Additionally, if you're betting on the money line, you might see the +205 that you had in one app, but on another app it might be +220. So if you use that sports betting app, you'd be making more money if you win. The odds are not the same on every single one of them. So it's very important to look at multiple sports betting apps. You don't need to get like 8 or 9, but get yourself a good 3 or 4, and hopefully the value stays the same in all of them, so you'll have enough money to bet depending on which one you want. But looking at odds shopping is something that a lot of experts in Vegas do. And if you can just do so just by picking up your phone and opening one app or another app, it's very smart.
I'll tell you what, by the time we see each other on Thursday, I will have more apps that you recommend. I'll put it that way.
And I will know because you will use my code and I'll get some free bets.
Will I get free bets as well?
Yes.
All right, I'm in.
I'm going to tell you the downside to that, and I don't want to take you away from using Chapman's code or anything, but I've got, the FanDuel Fantasy. I got, a certain deposit in that one. I've got my Poker Stars. I got the money there that I'm looking over at DraftKings. I got balances over here, balances over there. It's all over the place, So,
well, you got to make sure you don't spend more than you can spend. Like if you want to deposit $100, I'm just saying, don't put $100 all into one app. Do 40 in one, 30 in another, and 30 in another, or something.
Damn,
like that.
Jonek's betting 100 a game. What are you talking about?
I wish my pockets were that deep. I wish.
All right, then. Brian, we'll come and check in on you for the major wager in chapter.
We want some of his thoughts on the fifth chapter, the fourth chapter here too.
Okay, perhaps
because he's a golf guy.
Yeah, he is a golf guy. All right, so let's turn that page to before we turn the page to the fourth chapter, one quick comment from Beth, who says the Sixers should win against Atlanta if Embiid can play through injuries as he did in Game 1.
I agree with you, Beth.
And one last update. Atlanta just keeps on chipping away. Philly has a 35-29 lead. That means that if you bet on the point spread of -6 or +6, it's a push. It's a push.
Okay, still nothing decided there on the number. All right, in the fourth chapter, it was a controversy that played out over the weekend down in Ohio. John Rahm forced to withdraw from the tournament after leading the Memorial after 3 rounds because he tested positive for COVID. Now, Chap, what do you think should have happened here? There was a lot of debate whether or not the PGA or the Memorial itself should have made some allowances there and let John Rahm play that final round as it stood. He was up by 6 strokes, and he ended up, if he would have been able to play and win, he had won $1.5 million.
Yeah. This is why I've lost hope for our country. And you might be saying, well, wow, that's a pretty big statement to say about some golfer who didn't win $1 million. But think about this. Today is June 3rd or June 8th, 2021. We learned about John Rahm testing positive on June 5th, 2021. We've known about this coronavirus pandemic since, at the very latest, if you were living under a rock, the middle of March when everything started to shut down in 2020, but most folks probably heard about it around January 2020, and perhaps some that were really paying attention heard about it in December of 2019. So the point I'm making is that this is not something new. And after having lived with this in this environment with the coronavirus for the last year and a half, we pretty much know what to expect. We know the procedure. If you test positive, you quarantine. Like that, it's simple. Everybody knows by now. If you test positive, you quarantine. Whether you're a hospital worker, a big radio star, a baker, a hairdresser, a plant worker, you could be the president of the United States, and it happened to the president of the United States. You could be an NHL player, a baseball player, or anybody else. If you test positive, you quarantine. It's pretty simple. And if you test positive, you quarantine not just for a couple of hours or a day, you do so for 2 weeks or until you have perhaps back-to-back negative tests. But suddenly, because John Rahm had some great score and he was leading by some wide margin, and because coronavirus numbers across the country were going down, people wanted to act like we should make an exception for John Rahm and say, oh, just let him play. He's winning. You're going to screw him out of the opportunity to win this money because he just tested positive. And I just keep on thinking to myself, there's nothing new here. Why are people getting up in arms about this? And folks are saying, oh, we'll just let him play by himself or let him carry his own bag. Then he can socially distance. This is about his own health and safety, where you want to make sure to not put too much stress on him. So lock him up in quarantine, and you want to make sure that nobody else is around him. You're supposed to stay away from other people when you have the coronavirus. This is not rocket science. And am I late to the party where the CDC said, hey, if you test positive, you're allowed to go out and do stuff as long as you are 6 feet away from folks? No, they said the reason they have the 6 foot barrier is because you don't know who has it. And if you are 6 feet away from somebody else, social distancing, then if they have it and they don't know it, or if you have it and you don't know it, you won't be spreading it. But we know John Rahm has it. So stay home. Is it unfortunate? Yes. But there should be no controversy here. He tested positive. He's done. He handled it the right way. And that's that.
Well, I don't know. You can look at a lot of different numbers and different ways to look at things. I was just looking up the percentage of the people that were fully vaccinated in the United States, and it lists 42%. I don't know how if they put the kids that are under 15 that can't get the shot in there, or the ones that are eligible or not. But that's a pretty low number. I think Michigan's what says it's 62%. Does that sound about right to you?
No.
The point. You think it's higher than that?
No, I think you might have those numbers swapped, because I think the fully vaccinated number in Michigan is about 43%. It's about 49% that have one shot in Michigan, and I think around the country it's like 63% are fully vaccinated. Or I'm sorry, have one shot.
Yeah, fully vaccinated. That's
fully
all
lower.
Of a sudden. Yeah, 42%. I just looked it up.
Okay.
So John Rahm's Spanish, so he doesn't apply to the United States numbers. The point that I was going to make there's an awful lot of people that don't believe in it. They might be lazy, saying the hell with it. They might be like my nephew, who's like, this is not approved by the FDA. I'm not going to let the government control me. They could be like my brother, who's like, look, I'm in great shape. I want to take care of this naturally. I don't need no boost. I don't need anything. And there's been 15 months where if you're somebody that's been against this or thinks it's politically driven, you just look at it and say, you know what, I'm fine. I've been doing this for 15 months. I'm fine. I don't know what John Rahm's idea was when it came down to it, but there were going to be, if you've followed this or tried to over the last couple months, you have noticed that along with the vaccine, that if you did not get it, there are going to be certain instances that maybe that you were going to get, you were going to be in a situation where maybe you couldn't get in the ballpark, maybe you had to wait in a line, maybe you had to get a test if you were going to go in somewhere. And if you're going to play golf and you weren't going to be vaccinated and you caught the coronavirus, you were going to get DQ'd from a tournament. All of these things were known. You know, there is a part because they changed the rules as we saw as the pandemic was going on. Hey, let's schedule this. Let's put this over here. Let's fly out. Let's have Coastal Carolina play BYU. Could you have said, look, you know, John Rahm, he's asymptomatic. Why not just let him play the final round by himself? Or why not have his playing partner stay 6 feet away from him? Why not have his caddy? I don't know. Can his caddy pay 6 feet away from him? I don't know. And I know people that don't really think the coronavirus. There's a lot of people. It's like, it's not, you know, John Rahm is perfectly fine. And so will all the golfers. I mean, this is a line of thinking here. It doesn't matter if his caddy gets it. You know, he gets $1 million, he gets up to 100,000, 10% of it's going to make 150,000 if John Rahm wants to or ends up winning it. Why not let him, you know, make his own decision there? I think that there's a point to that. And since you're outside, you know, you've got the full gallery and everything. Could everybody stay, you know, I don't even know if you have to stay 6 feet away. There could have been a case to be made there. I think that what happened under the memorial is that, I mean, you're running that tournament and you could hear everybody, you know, the experts, like guys on Twitter that or people that work in sports talk, you know, telling you that they're experts. But if one person, you know, ended up getting sick and dying, which I guess could happen, or, you know, it looked like, to me, I think it would have been a preventative measure there from not getting sued. Now, that's my guess.
Oh, that's true too. But I mean, it's also nothing has changed. You get the coronavirus, you quarantine, and people want to make an exception because he was playing well. There is no "you're playing well" exception. I understand that there would not be this uproar if John Rahm was a guy who just barely made the cut and he was the first to tee off on Sunday. People would say, hey, just go home. You're not doing anything. And it's hard to win a PGA tournament. He had a chance to win a heck of a lot of money. But it's pretty cut and dry. And
yeah, but
you made a great point.
Not for a lot of people, chat. People look at the.
I was going to say, you made a great point that people know that if you test positive, you have to disqualify yourself. Just like if you test positive and you play baseball, then you're going to be out for the next series or whatever the case may be. Everybody knows this, and he did test positive. So we're going to all of a sudden make an exception on the fly that's not based on science, that's based on his position and his likelihood of winning the championship.
Well, there's stances by people that are not into getting vaccinated, or you say anti-vaxxers, where it's like, look, this whole thing, it didn't need to happen. Everything's fine. It's only for, you know, old people or people that are overweight. You know, John Rahm's fine. Let him play. He wasn't getting sick. Yeah, Change the rules. These are ridiculous. Didn't we learn anything over the last couple months with what we saw with the Texas ballpark and everybody freaking out and, you know, the emails? And so, like, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, wanted to see him play and think he got screwed out of the 1.5. Now, most of those people, you know, didn't get the vaccination themselves.
Well, the other thing about that is when it comes to John Rahm, he had close contact with somebody who tested positive about a week ago. And because of that, the PGA Tour said that he had to like isolate from other people if he was going to be in the tournament. And then it turned out that he did test positive. So we're in the infancy of him having the coronavirus. So we don't know if he's eventually going to get sick. We might find out that by the time we do our show on Thursday that he's having some real rough symptoms and maybe he's had to go to the hospital. We don't know right now. And everybody's case is different, which is why you just go with the precautions. And the precautions say if you test positive, there's no exemption for how well you're doing it with your job. You quarantine.
Let's see what Jelinek thinks. He's the big golf guy.
All right, little Brian, what do you think?
I'm totally on Chapman's side for this. You can't make exceptions for people who are testing positive like that. I get that he had a 6-shot lead and all that, but if he's testing positive, he can't be there. It's that simple. I just think that's ridiculous. I will say I think the PGA Tour handled it really poorly by telling him on the 18th green that he's going to have to. That was a terrible look.
Oh yeah, Dottie Pepper outside the clubhouse, like she looked like. I mean, she was in a tough spot, but that wasn't very. I mean, it was good, made for interesting TV, but
you can't say a bad thing about Dottie Pepper. She's like the Doris Burke. She's incredible.
But did you watch her when she was outside? I mean, she was just like, it's over. He's not going to be allowed to play. And I was just like, wow, this is so sad. Like, I mean,
I don't know. But I mean, what I was doing all this reading over the weekend about this topic, and one thing I realized is that, or one thing that I read, is that the PGA Tour is only testing unvaccinated players right now. And when John Rahm came out with this statement on Saturday, he didn't necessarily say if he got vaccinated or didn't. But it's pretty easy to tell that he hasn't been vaccinated. It's just that simple. And I think it's a really weird area for all athletes across all sports. But I think the organization should make their athletes get tested. I think it's ridiculous that like Taylor Decker can say he doesn't want to get tested, get vaccinated. Excuse me. I think it's ridiculous that he says, I don't want to get vaccinated. So I don't know what you do about it. I really don't. But it's just a bad look all around right now for the PGA.
Well, and that's going to hurt the same old Lions in the fall if he tests positive, because there are going to be other players on the team that have been vaccinated. And if he decides to not get the coronavirus vaccine, and let's say the backup left tackle decides not to get it, they hang around each other all the time, and maybe Taylor Decker's girlfriend goes and hangs out with somebody who also didn't get the coronavirus vaccine, and then she gets the vaccine, she gets the virus, and then a couple days later she's able to transmit it to him. They're both asymptomatic for a little bit, and then that gets passed on to the backup offensive lineman. And guess what? Taylor Decker and the backup left tackle are out for perhaps 2 games, and Jared Goff is getting crushed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand the PGA Tour and the NFL are totally different, but you can't tell people to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. But I really feel like the NFL should just say, in order to play, you have to be vaccinated. But I understand that'd be a huge PR nightmare for them. I understand it would be a disaster all around. Like, I don't know how you win.
They could end up hurting their team. That's going to be the bottom line on it. Like Tom Brady, I don't know. It's like LeBron James. LeBron James was pretty dicey about whether he had, he wouldn't answer the question. I don't know if he ultimately did or not, but was it the week before he was in the playoffs? He was, drinking tequila with, all the whatever the new line. I think
he has been vaccinated because the NBA put out a statement that said that they're not going to quarantine people or have people suspended for a game or whatever the case may be if they have been vaccinated, even if they've gone to party. So LeBron James may not have admitted it, but the NBA essentially admitted that he's been vaccinated by not suspending him. But I'll say this, like this fall, when we get to football season, assuming that the coronavirus vaccination numbers continue to go up, even if they don't soar up, they continue to creep up. If we get to like 75% vaccination rates and the case numbers are down, but you've got, a couple of you still got like a couple of thousand people that are testing positive per day. If they star quarterback, if they star linebacker, if a star defensive end, if a star wide receiver has to miss a game or two because he does not take the vaccine and he tests positive, I wonder what fans are going to think when they start calling into shows, when they start hitting up message boards. Are those folks that were anti-coronavirus vaccine and they say, hey, you know what? We lost these last 2 games because we had the backup quarterback in, but I'm okay with that because he doesn't trust Dr. Fauci. I think we'll probably have some of that, but some fans are going to say, this is ridiculous. Like, everybody's got the vaccine. Nobody's growing a 7th arm, and he cost our team the game.
You know what? I think that they're going to be mad at the NFL, and they're going to be mad at hey, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Let him play. Why are you taking him out? It's stupid. You don't need to have a vaccine. He's 28 years old. Well, it seems like half the country feels like
that's what it's going to be like. And I can't wait for Taylor Decker to be out for 3 weeks for that. So it's going to happen.
That's very mean of you. That's the meanest thing you've said. All right, Jelinek, we'll see. And we know you got the Hawks on the money line tonight.
All right, yeah, that'll be your major wager. Let's turn the page to the fifth chapter and get to our major wagers, where we have an opportunity to share with you guys what we think will be some big time money makers for you, particularly now that sports betting is legal in the state of Michigan. Dennis, remind everybody what you bet on for Thursday, and also what you're thinking about, or perhaps have already bet on for tonight.
Well, I had a terrible run last week. You know, I jumped on the LeBron James bandwagon on the individual games, the point totals, the rebound assist totals, and I just took it was a bloodbath. You know, I bet it on Tuesday when he said, jump on my back. When street clothes was out, jump on my back. And then I thought, you know what? He's going to come back in the elimination game. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He jump on his back. He's not going to have 2 games, and man, and he have 2. Yeah, he wasn't terrible, but he didn't reach the numbers. And I just I'm on a, that just killed me. LeBron, I'm not even, I'm not a Lakers fan. I like LeBron, but I'm just I'm hurt. I have a huge when you really feel something like I felt it, like, oh, it's just going to happen. Now I didn't bet it for real, but it feels like I did. But I'm right back at it here. And you know what? I watched the Hawks and how good they looked in game 1. And let's watch the Sixers come back. And I thought, you know what? Philly's found something out here with the pressure, and they've got to win. You've got to win at home. Game number 2, you're the number 1 seed. The 6 points, I didn't like that, but I just went with it. I said, you know what? I'm going Philly tonight. And that's where my major wager was. I told you before the show that I was going to bet the Sixers. So everyone – when I see that they're up by 10 here, you say, well, yeah, pretty easy when they're up 10. I don't know what the score is, but that was my bet tonight. I took the Sixers -6.
Well, they're not up by 10, but they're up by close to that. They're up by 8, if you can see that.
It's going to be a nail-biter.
57-49.
Should have taken those points, Jelinek.
I actually took the Sixers -6 as well, but that was not my major wager. On Thursday, the
minor
Suns.
Wager?
What's that?
There's a minor wager?
Yeah, that was a minor wager. We'll go with that. On Thursday, the Suns were 2-point underdogs to the Lakers, but I was very aggressive. I took the Suns -4.5 points via an alternate spread, which you can do easily on one of your sports betting apps, and I got that at +175. I was so confident that they'd beat the Lakers and do so easily that I picked them to win by that -4.5, cover that -4.5, and they did. They won, I think, by 10 points or 13 points, so that was easy cash for me. Actually, they won by 13. That's what it was. Tonight, I decided to go with a strikeout prop bet. I went back with my model, and I looked at all the different matchups, and I saw that Marco Gonzalez, pitching for the Mariners against the Tigers, had an over-under strikeout total set at 4.5. And the Tigers, as everybody knows, is one of the highest strikeout teams in all of baseball. And my strikeout model projected that number of 4.5 to be way too low, had the strikeout number set at 7.59. So I took the over on 4.5. And as of right now, it is the 4th inning, and things are not looking good because in the top of the 4th inning, Marco Gonzalez has thrown 3 innings. He's given up 4 runs. He's got 59 pitches, and he only has, most importantly, 1 strikeout. So when you
checking him for the suntan lotion and everything, maybe you should start betting all the overs.
He needs to get that sticky stuff back so we can get me some money.
Yeah, the sticky stuff. These guys are not. They're not going to the sticky substance anymore. So offense way up. I think you should maybe make a play. Bet the board all overs here.
Well, no, it would have to be all unders, right?
No, offense is going to go way up if you can't use the sticky stuff. Oh, you're talking about the strikeouts.
Yeah.
Yes, unders on the strikeouts, overs on the total.
Yeah, well, that might be some sage betting advice. We'll see if you stick with that advice on Thursday.
Ooh, I like it. Stick. All right, well, that's going to do it. I don't know if Chapman's got the or if I'm going to have to freestyle it on the way out, but thanks to Brian Jelinek, and for Brian Chapman, thanks for listening to the 5th chapter. We will talk with you coming up on Thursday. Out. Boom, boom. That'll do it.